Hey everybody, this is Wavetune and welcome back to another Geometry Dash 2.2 video. Today I'm going to be talking about why I hate the random trigger. So I've mentioned this a few times before in other videos and I said that I might make a full video about it someday, and well, here it is. So without further ado, let's get into it. The first reason for why I hate the random trigger is annoying, confusing and generally terrible gameplay. Geometry Dash is meant to be a game of skill, not luck, and the random trigger would definitely change this. Here, I'm attempting to build a piece of annoying gameplay to show examples of some of the horrible things that could happen when 2.2 does come. As you can see, I've built a sort of Y shape with blocks and spikes underneath so that you can't cheat it. Next, we'll place an alpha trigger, set it to any empty group ID, we'll choose 10, and set the fade time and opacity to 0, so if you set a block to that group ID, the block will become completely invisible. Then, we place a pink jump pad on the middle block and set it to reverse, so that if the player hits it, then it will reverse and go up to the left instead of the right. Finally, we'll add it to group ID 10, so it'll become invisible. We'll also add it to another empty group ID, we'll pick 11. You'll find out why later. Now this is where the random trigger comes in. After we've placed it, we'll set one of the group IDs to 11, which contains our reversing jump pad, and the other to 12, an empty group ID. If we leave the chance at 50, which we will, this means that there's a 50% chance that the jump pad will appear and reverse the player, and a 50% chance that nothing will happen. What makes it worse is that the player will have no prior warning to what has happened because the jump pad is invisible. When we save and play, you'll see just how frustrating this is. On the first attempt, the pad appeared, the player was reversed. On the second attempt, the pad appeared again, the player was reversed again. And on the third attempt, as you can see, the pad didn't appear. The player was not reversed. But in this scenario, it's not actually that bad. Either way, if the pad appears or does not appear, the player has to just hold down the button to get to the top. Let's make it a little bit harder. So, what we're going to do is move these two blocks at the right down to require a different input either way. If the pad doesn't appear and the player's not reversed, you have to let go of the button, but if the jump pad does appear and the player is reversed, you have to hold it down. Also, we'll extend the spikes a bit so that you definitely can't cheat. So, on the first attempt, I was lucky I managed to react quickly enough, or not react quickly enough, but I managed to guess which way the pad would go. Second attempt, again, I was lucky. But on the third attempt, not so much. I guessed that the pad would appear and I held down the button, but the pad didn't appear and so I died to the spikes. In this example, and probably many others that may come in the future of Geometry Dash, you do have a pretty good chance of guessing right and completing the level. But that's not really the point. As I said earlier, it defeats the ultimate point of Geometry Dash, to be a skill game. It just turns it into a game of luck, and that's what I hate. And what makes it even worse, I obviously created this level, so I know where the randomized jump pad is. But if I was just a random player playing this random level, for all I knew, there could have been hundreds of others waiting to confuse me. Since you can't tell from just playing a level where the random triggers are, or if there even are any, it would make playing Geometry Dash a horrible experience, with never knowing what might happen. The second reason I hate the random trigger is secret ways. There are many things that could happen with this in 2.2, but here is, I think, the main one. So, first, someone creates a maybe not impossible, but extremely hard level, which they maybe can't complete. But they still want to verify it. So here's what they do. Select some blocks at the bottom, which, if removed, would make the level free, and then they add them to an empty group ID, like 10. Then set up a random trigger. Make one of the group IDs a random empty group ID, like 11, and the other one the group ID which contains the spikes, so in this case, 10. If you set the chance to something high, like for example 90, this would mean there's a 90% chance that the spikes will appear and make the level hard, and a 10% chance that the spikes will not appear and make the level free. When we save and play, you'll see what I mean.
20 minutes later.
That time, it took 10 attempts for the random trigger to remove the spikes and open the secret way. And if we changed the chance to something ridiculous like 99.99999%, well, you get the idea. This will likely spark so many impossible or near impossible levels that sections like the recent levels section, which were already not the best, will become completely unplayable. Even rated levels could have faked verification videos using any of numerous methods and actually be verified by one of the methods shown here. This would make it so much easier to verify impossible levels and fake completions and make GD so much worse than it already is. So, after many months of trying and failing, you finally passed one of these near impossible, completely luck-based, randomized reverse jump pad mazes. You thought you were done with the 2.2 random trigger hell. Well, you thought wrong. Here's another horrible concept. First, set up a pretty hard jump like a triple spike. Move the spikes out a bit to make it even harder. Then, put a few spikes afterwards to make the jump impossible. Add just the spikes which make the jump impossible to an empty group ID. We'll use 21. Now, set up a random trigger. Make one of the group IDs 21, which contains the spikes that make the jump impossible, and the other to 22, a random empty group ID. Leave the chance at 50 for now. What this now means is that there's a 50% chance that the spikes will appear and make the jump impossible, and a 50% chance that the spikes will not appear, making the jump possible. You'll see what I mean when we save and play. I'll use a start pause though, so I don't have to beat the mess before every time. So on the first attempt, the jump was possible. We were able to beat it. On the second attempt, wasn't possible. Third time round, wasn't possible again. Fourth time, wasn't possible again. Fifth time, it was possible again. You get the idea. But as always with the random trigger, the game changer is the chance. Now, with the chance at 1%, it means that there's only a 1% chance that the jump will be possible and a 99% chance that the spikes will appear and make the jump impossible. We can also move the spikes out even further, so that even if the jump is possible, it's still really hard. So now, when we save and play, on attempt 1, impossible. Attempt 2, impossible. Attempt 3, that time it was possible and we were able to beat it, but actually it's extremely rare that it will happen on the third attempt. We were just really lucky. Now you should see a bit more.
20 minutes later.
At that point I just gave up. And, even worse, imagine that was at the end of an extreme demon. So, you're about to beat your new hardest level, but there's an impossible jump. You're gonna have to beat the same torturous gameplay hundreds of times to be able to actually complete it. And even when the jump is possible, it's still extremely hard. This is a pretty short one, but I think it's important. There's no real good use for the random trigger in 2.2. Like, maybe to randomize some deco features or something, but what would that really add to the game? Considering the huge disadvantages of this feature, I don't think there are anywhere near enough advantages to make it even worth considering to add. In 2.2, apart from being horribly annoying, the random trigger will cause all sorts of bugs and glitches, especially in practice mode. Since you won't know where the random triggers are, every time you restart from a checkpoint, the level could be completely different. This would make it impossible to fully practice a level and know all the outcomes, because there's absolutely no way of knowing if you've missed one. So, especially in harder levels, there could be a piece of gameplay that you get surprised by and die to because you hadn't practiced it. This would be because it hadn't, by chance, appeared in practice mode, and this would render the mode completely useless and possibly cause its death. As I've said before, the point of Geometry Dash is to be a game of skill, not luck, and the random trigger would change this. For example, you might be thinking, This maze actually isn't that bad. Aren't there way worse and way harder mazes in Geometry Dash? And the answer is yes, you're right, there are. In some extreme demons like Zyrokabi or the Sonic series, there are ball and cube mazes which are way harder than anything I've shown in this video. There's a difference though, and a really fundamental one. In all the really hard mazes I just showed you there, after days, weeks, even months of practice, you can eventually do them consistently. In 2.2, with the random trigger, this will absolutely not be the case. Since the maze will change every time, it will be impossible to do it consistently and rely completely on luck. This is what I hate so much. So, for basically all of this video, I've been talking about 2.2 and the random trigger in a negative light, saying why it will be really bad. But there are some compromises which I can think of that would maybe give the best of both worlds. First of all, my suggestion for 2.2. It's a bit long to explain here, but I think it would really help if it was added. You can check it out in the top right here. Another idea I had was that the random trigger is configured so that it cannot be used on gameplay, only deco. I think this would be good because, although there might be some positive uses of the random trigger on deco, there are practically none for gameplay, so I think this would be a good compromise. Or, finally, there's the idea that all randomizations can be seen in normal and practice mode, so there's maybe an effect or a particle that means that you can always tell that there's a randomization there. Whatever may happen when 2.2 does come, I do hope that it's not as bad as I fear. There is a chance, if small, that 2.2 will be perfect, have no drawbacks whatsoever, and the game will continue on as same or better. We can only hope that that will be the case. Anyway, that is going to have to be it for this week. This video was entirely my opinion, and do feel free to leave yours down in the comments below. But for now, I hope you enjoyed the video and we'll come back next week for more. But until then, I'll see you next time.